As we light our own chalices this morning, please join me in saying the words of our covenant, which will be shown on your screen. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Tobin is on vacation this week, but Reverend Erika has a moment of all ages collective learning to share with you.
I do, and the worship team and tech team have invited us to make this truly interactive. This is an experimental play, and to do that, I invite you, if you want to turn your video camera on just for this piece, and even to go into gallery view, because what I want us to do is be able to, as much as possible, see each other's responses, and I will be narrating out loud what I see. Okay, so if you can't get to your screen, it's okay. What we're going to do is play a game of Let's Pretend. But before I do that, in case you like to know what's coming, I want to let you know that my homily has a little interlude in it. So when we get to that interlude, I am going to be inviting you to do a private spiritual practice. You might reflect just in your own mind, but if you like to journal or draw your way through spiritual practice, you have plenty of time to go get paper and any markers or pens if that's what floats your boat. So do whatever it takes to get what you need to float your boat. So here is the game. And thank you all for those of you who turn on your cameras. This game of Let's Pretend, I am going to be asking you to use your thumbs to show how you feel about any number of hypothetical responses that people say to you in response to you feeling hurt. So here's what I mean. I would like you to pretend, just make it up in your own head, that one person who you know and who's in your life has hurt you, hurt your feelings enough that it's really hard to let go of and your heart still hurts. And then I am going to list some things that they might say to you. And for each one, I'm going to let you give me either a thumbs up, and if you hold your thumbs up, that means I would like to hear that. That really feels good to hear. If you hold your thumbs down, that means that is not something I want to hear. That does not feel good. And just because we know that it's not always a black and white world, if you hold your thumb like somewhere in the middle, that means, I don't know, it depends. Okay. And I'd like to see whether we have consensus over any of these, whether we as a collective have a group wisdom about which words are good medicine and which words are not helpful. Okay. So you have your imaginary scenario. Someone has hurt your feelings and it's still hurting your heart. Please show me how you would feel if they say to you, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Okay, I see. So a lot of thumbs being held down. Oh, it's great. And people have figured out that Zoom has a thumbs down. Wonderful. Thanks for teaching us that, Tricia. Okay, good. Next question, next experiment. I don't know why you're so upset. How would you feel? Okay, some of you are really quick on the thumbs. This is good. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs down. People are collectively saying, that does not feel good. How about this one? I can see, I really can see and feel that you're upset. Okay, so we have some middle of the road, we have some thumbs up, we have some middle of the road, right? We have some like thumbs that keep moving. It's hard to know what might come next after that statement. How about this statement? I'm truly sorry for how I hurt you. Okay. Yeah. So I think this is great. So I see a lot of thumbs up because we're trusting that person to be sincere as opposed to trying to get out of something, right? How about this one? Show me with your thumb how you'd feel about the statement, you sure are sensitive. Okay. I see a great number. My thumb would be down on that one. Yeah. And some of you are emphatically like pushing your thumb down over and over to show that like exclamation points on that. Okay, a few more. What if the person says, I've learned from this and I'm going to try my best not to do it again? Okay, good. Okay, we're taking that on good faith. Okay, here's another one. Will you forgive me? Yeah, see, I'm seeing some thumbs in the middle. For me, that's a trick question too. Like, I don't, I might need to hear more. That like it's maybe not that easy. Okay, three more. Three more. I am sorry this happened. Interesting. I see some thumbs up, I see thumbs in the middle, and I see some thumbs down. I think it's because this happened removes the person from taking responsibility. That's my guess about the thumbs down. Okay, second to last one. What would you think about the statement? Well, it takes two to tango, you know. Right, right. A lot of thumbs down. Some people are holding two thumbs down. When our feelings are really hurt, it does not really heal things to be told that somehow um, we're responsible too, although that might be true. Last one. The last one is I would like to repair this hurt in our relationship. How could we do that? Yeah. Yeah, great. So yeah, and I can see how I saw a couple of middle thumbs slightly turning upward. I could see that sometimes we might trust that that's sincere. Right. Well, thank you for doing that. If you'd like to, you can turn your cameras off. And I just want to just talk about this a little bit. Um, and make it clear that in the service today, the hurts and the forgiveness that I'm talking about are the ones that are within our power. They're the ones that are within our practice. I'm not talking about large scale geopolitical tragedies. I'm talking about the personal hurts that we have endured. And sometimes we know words can be medicine. And when people want to help repair what's broken or validate the pain we're in, and witness that, it can feel like good medicine. And sometimes we don't get that. Sometimes we are left feeling bad. So before I talk to you about the story of forgiveness this morning, I want to remind you that sometimes the only thing that forgiveness can entail, or the first step, is turning so much love on ourselves that we make sure that we give our hearts tender and exquisite care so that we can coach ourselves into wholeness. Find people to join us in that work. And I also want to share the text that guides this service, that guided me, that was my prayer in creating this service. The guiding text comes from Of Mess and Moxie by the Christian author Jen Hatmaker. I'd like you to hear her words. The work of forgiveness is so challenging. The actual work of it, the naming, grieving, empathizing, releasing. It's like a death of what we wanted, what we expected, what we'd hoped for, what we deserved and didn't receive. We don't get to control other people or outcomes. I am as devastated about this as you. And so, if only for this morning, may we be open to learning and growing and doing hard things like using our words and our hearts to build love in the world, including love for ourselves. Thank you for joining me in that experiment together.
Thank you for that, Reverend Erika. That was fun. As many of you know, the season of stewardship is upon us. As you contemplate your commitment to First Parish, please lend an ear to members Molly Snow and Sheila Sullivan as they share their stories in a stewardship moment.
Hi, I'm Molly Snow, and I'm a senior at Portland High School, and I've been participating in the religious education and youth group services at First Parish since I first started coming in third grade.
And I'm Sheila Sullivan, mom to Molly and her brother Finn Snow. And I served as the membership coordinator and then congregational administrator at First Parish for about 4 years.
And what I've really loved about First Parish is the community I've found. The religious education and youth group communities have allowed me to grow my spirituality and my sexuality and my morality too. I really have just been able to be so open in discussing sexuality with everybody, participating in the youth group services, and also our discussions about spirituality and what we believe in has allowed me to grow in that way and expand my thinking. Another community I've really found at First Parish is the music community. The choir, the music directors, everybody is just so amazing to talk to and so passionate about what they do. It's really just allowed me to grow myself in that way as a musician. And the experience of singing in front of a congregation is just so special and unforgettable.
So First Parish has been a very important part of our life as a family. As a parent, it's been amazing to see a community come to support your kids and cheer them on through all their different stages of development. And then I've had this unique opportunity to be both a member and then a staff person at First Parish. And it was during my time as the congregational administrator that I had the opportunity to work closely with so many longtime members of First Parish. And I was so impressed, and I'm still so impressed with how these members who've been around for such a long time have seen the church through so many transitions of ministers and staff people, and they are able to hold this long-term vision for our faith community that transcends personalities and is all about the power of community of people coming together to work together towards a common goal. So we think it's so critical to support First Parish at this time of transition to ensure that our church comes out of the pandemic with really strong footing. We want our church community to be ready to work together for a more just and loving world. So thank you for supporting First Parish.
And thank you to Molly and Sheila for sharing their perspectives. As they so eloquently shared, this is a crucial time for our church community. We have faced unprecedented challenges and plenty of changes, and it's especially important in this time of transition to make our commitments to First Parish, the community within, and those we serve. To make your pledge, you can go to the online pledge form, which Devin will put into the chat, or you can look at the pledge form that you likely received in the mail. If you'd like to know more, you can also contact Susan Cook, who's our stewardship chair, or see the online resources on our website. Another way to support our efforts here at church and sustain this faith community is through our weekly offertory. Information on how to give for that will be shared on your screen in a moment. For our offertory music today, we have a really special piece. The following song, Forgiveness, was created and recorded specifically for this service by the Reverend Amy Carroll Webb. We are grateful for her generosity in sharing this song, and we are grateful for the generous gifts that you give. Thank you.
If you're looking for a moment's peace, if you're longing for some sweet release, if you're searching for one quiet place to rest, forgiveness. If the anger's grown too much to bear, you're tired of trying not to care, you just want to stop that aching in your chest. Forgiveness. Forgive and forget, the old saying goes, but that's not what I mean. The heart can't forget the pain it knows, but forgiveness can begin to wash it clean. If you're wading through a long night's dream to wake up to the sun's first gleam and face the day with more than second best, forgiveness. If you're looking for a way to love that's somehow more than good enough and purify your heart for nothing less, forgiveness. Like the body heals but leaves a scar, so the wounded heart and soul, every lesson learned will leave its mark, but forgiveness can begin to make us whole. It just might be the bravest thing you do, to release the pain that poisons you and leave behind that load and start afresh. Forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. Forgiveness.
What follows right now are true stories from real people. And every one of them has given permission for their story to be read here today anonymously. That's so important, I want to repeat it. Every person who shared their story with me gave permission, as long as they remained anonymous, for you to hear their story. I will also say, if it is traumatic for you to hear mention of sexual abuse, please take care of yourself and turn off your sound for just a couple of minutes. Here's the first story. My niece told me and my wife that we weren't invited to her wedding. Apparently, she felt like I would stand up and say, "I'm gay and I don't believe in God the way y'all do." I don't know what she was thinking. I've been to hundreds of weddings and I know exactly how to behave, so it still rankles. I'm having a hard time forgiving her.
When I was 21, I left my parents' fundamentalist church. My parents cut me off financially and signed all my student loans into my name, so I took on $20,000 in debt overnight. They also had members of their church send me hate mail telling me I was going to hell. There's not much worse when you're 21 than getting cut off by your parents. I've never received anything like an apology, though we do talk occasionally. It took me a long time to accept that they were the ones at fault, and I didn't need to do anything to try to win them back.
After serving a congregation faithfully for 9 years, I announced my planned retirement, effective in 9 months. A leader in the congregation introduced a motion to invoke the 90-day clause in my contract so the church could save $15,000. The motion passed. Years later, I still refuse to have anything to do with those leaders and that congregation.
I was sexually abused from age 2 to 18 and got married to escape that abuse. I have tried to reconcile and forgive my abuser, but the degradation was just too strong. It took a therapist to tell me that forgiveness was earned and forgiving was a gift, and in their opinion, not necessary in this case. After more than 20 years of therapy, I learned it was okay to not forgive.
I cannot forgive anyone who put Donald Trump in charge of the country. Maybe someday I'll feel differently. The hardest aspect is the extended family who raised me and who helped calibrate my moral compass, who support Trump and Trumpism. One could make the case that Trump isn't worth dividing families and friends, but it is their choice to participate in this awful behavior. They can believe what they want to believe, but they can do it without me around.
My best friend, who was like a sister to me for about 12 years, broke up with me because I was in an abusive relationship and she couldn't stand to see me hurt. She said, "I need to set this boundary because I can't be in your life anymore." That's not why I can't forgive her. I understand boundaries. That's fine. What I'm having a hard time with is that when my mom passed away, she didn't even send a note or call or text or anything. She knew my mom passed away. I just can't seem to find it in my heart to forgive. I'm just so mad. To me, it lacked human decency. I needed something that said, "Hey, I'm sorry your mom died." She was my ride or die best friend. We were the friends that everyone was jealous of because they wanted our friendship. I don't know how to forgive her for not reaching out to me and extending sympathy, because Lord have mercy, I would in her shoes. I just don't understand it. It's hard. It's so hard.
It is so hard. Even if it is so hard, it's so hard. Even if your story of being betrayed or wounded or abandoned doesn't match any of the stories that you just heard, I know that you have been hurt too. And I'm sorry for the ways you've been hurt. I'm sorry if the person who caused that hurt, whether they meant to or not, has never said to you, "I'm sorry," or shown you that they want to do better and restore a relationship with you. One of the stories that you heard reminds us of something important, that sometimes it is okay not to forgive. And I want to repeat that again. You don't have to forgive anyone who has hurt you or even entertain the notion of forgiving. I also want to remind you that if it is our choice, we undertake the work of forgiving, not to let other people off the hook, but to allow ourselves to move forward with more freedom, with less poison in our systems, with less emotional landscape being held hostage by someone else. So when I talk about forgiveness, for me, I'm not talking about reconciliation or even closure. I'm talking about freedom. When I choose to be curious about what it might feel like to let go of the painful weight of resentment, I'm the one who finds more ease, not the person who hurt me. It's about me. Now, see, I have not perfected the art of forgiving others. The writer Anne Lamott says that Earth is forgiveness school, that Earth is forgiveness school. And sometimes I wonder if anyone ever graduates. But my being hurt or betrayed or let down by other people, sometimes in very, very painful ways, has allowed me to practice forgiving or to practice thinking about it and to notice what facilitates that practice and where I just get stuck. And I've noticed that for me, the path to forgiveness seems to entail two intertwined stories. It would be nice to think they're beautifully intertwined, but sometimes they're just knotted together. So I want to tease them apart. One story is the story of them, whoever they are, and the reasons or the motivation behind the hurt they committed. And I've noticed that the more I fixate on that story, on them, the less I'm able to focus on the story about me and shape that story. Me as victim, or me as survivor, or me as the person who is betrayed or enraged or healing or getting free. So I want to start with that second story. I want to start with ourselves. I think you already know this, but when people injure us, when they injure our trust or our body or our integrity or our livelihood, our sense of safety, when people injure us, they often rupture our sense of self. So when I remember some of the betrayals and wounds dealt to me by other people, it felt like I lost important pieces of myself. I was both desperate to get them back, to feel like myself again, and I was terrified that I never could. And some of those wounds almost filled me with shame or doubt about who I am at my core. Am I really, am I really, am I really that the person they think I am? Or am I the person I know myself to be? So I'm guessing that a lot of you too know what it's like to grieve over and over this form of loss. Like many people, I also found it hard to sit with that pain. Sometimes when we are in pain, it feels like a tsunami wave that is going to come and carry it. I feel like it's going to come carry me away or bury me. And at times, because our human psyches have an instant transformer that converts pain right into anger, sometimes I went from feeling grief to feeling enraged. Now, maybe some of you are the kind of gentle, angry people that Holly Near sings about, the hymn that's in our hymnal. Gentle, angry people. But there are others of us who know firsthand that the rawest form of pain is anger, rage, and then when our soft animal bellies are wounded badly enough, our lizard brains want vengeance. Like remember that when I was betrayed painfully, irrevocably by someone I loved, I could not stop the seductive flood of retaliation fantasies that filled my mind. They weren't really violent ones, they weren't lethal ones, but still, I wanted to hit back. I wanted to fight back. I wanted to hurt back. One problem with retaliation as Elizabeth Brunig points out, is that the other person never perceives it as fair. And so, of course, other problems with retaliation and vengeance are that it escalates quickly and that hurting back often exacts collateral damage. Innocent or uninvolved people get hurt because we're all connected. But what is most interesting to me as a minister is what happens to us. What happens to the seat of our agency? What happens to the source of our connective power if we allow anger to steer the ship? Our theology, our Unitarian and our Universalist theologies, both of them in separate streams, tells us that our divine lamplight, what we might call our inherent worth and dignity, can never be taken away, and it longs to be the sovereign force in each of our lives. So, for example, a decade ago, when I was fighting my way through a debilitating betrayal by someone who made many promises to me and then broke all of them, I remember taking to Facebook, where I confessed my temptation to sell or burn every gift that I had given them. This was one of my more tame vengeance fantasies. It was, and you can hear that it is just a gloriously quick fix for a wound that needed tending. And also, here's a hot take. Social media is not the best forum for emoting our ugliest impulses. I know this, you know this, but I did it. And saints be praised that I did, because amid the comments on my post, mostly people just sort of watching me carefully, a compassionate colleague left 5 words, only 5 words, that burrowed their way into me so deeply, I'm repeating them back to you today. Those 5 words were, let your sacred self reign. Let your sacred self reign. Didn't like hearing that. But the words were enough to remind me that I had a sacred self, which is to say that I had values that were counter to what I was saying, and that I had choices about which internal voices to empower and which ones to turn away from. This capacity to choose is hinted at by Franciscan priest Richard Rohr, who has long counseled that, quote, if we do not transform our pain, we will most assuredly transmit it. If we do not transform our pain, we will most assuredly transmit it. If we don't stop that human psyche converter of pain to anger, we don't get in the machine and dismantle it. Wounds not examined, wounds not tended, not brought into our awareness, then that pain ends up getting passed along. And we have the choice to wrestle with our grief, with our anger, with our fear, all of it, so that it doesn't go on to hurt anyone else, including ourselves. And all of us are here with hearts full of holes where arrows have landed. We all have scars from invisible grief, maybe unspoken grief, and that is what it means to be alive in this world. So our wounds are a true part of our story. That betrayal that I just sort of briefly described to you, that will never not have happened to me. It will always be part of my story, but that is not the only story. And your story of your wounds is not the only story. Your story is also still being created by you and by the supportive, loving, life-giving voices of those with whom you're in supportive, right relationship, who are on your team. So, by virtue of the divine lamplight in you that never goes out, you get to reclaim your story and you get to shape its future chapters. So, I told you before our time of collective learning, I told you that I was going to invite you into a spiritual practice, and I want to take a couple of minutes in just a second. We'll hear some music. I want to take a couple of minutes for you to remember your sacred self or to touch base with your wisest voices before I finish my homily. So, if it works best for you to sit quietly with your eyes closed, great. If it works best for you to doodle your thoughts with pen on paper in a journal, do that. If you're sitting with someone you can be vulnerable with, can talk out loud with them. And here's the practice. Finish this sentence in as many ways as you can. Complete this sentence over and over. I know who I am. I am. So, for example, I know who I am. I am safe in this moment. I know who I am. I am loved by the people around me, and so on. And the answers that you come up with are just for you. They're just private. They're just private. They're for your own, between you and the great one who surrounds and holds us all. So listen for the most life-giving responses. Listen for the responses that ring with the most hope and the most love for the gift that you are. I know who I am. I'm. Let's begin and let the music carry us. If you want to do this later today, you can. If you got stuck or if you want to keep going, who are you as your most sacred self, as your most sovereign self? When I remember who I am brave, I know who I am. I'm okay now. I know who I am. I'm a person who wants to live her values. I am loving, loved, imperfect. When I remember who I am, it's like filling my pockets with healing touchstones that ground me and enliven me. And only after I claim agency over the story of myself and what happened to me can I then, only then, can I imagine examining and even rewriting that other story, the story about them, about the person or people who have hurt me. And the more times I rewrite that story, the closer I get to forgiveness. You might not be ready for that. I'm not ready for that in every situation. It's hard. And remember, sometimes you don't need to go further than you've already gone. But if you think it's possible and you're maybe wanting that freedom, here is what I mean by rewriting the story. Because we're sometimes just rehearsing this in our head, and that counts. I don't just mean telling the story to someone, I mean even just talking to ourselves. The first dozen or 100 times I narrate the saga of how they hurt me or they betrayed me, I will inevitably dehumanize them and their cold, icy hearts, right? I will think of them as a monster, as a jerk, as a word much worse than jerk, right? But what I have found possible is taking the time to tell the story differently, and each time leaching out the sting and adding in some curiosity. This is the slow road to forgiveness. Now, curiosity is, I think, a powerful spiritual resource. It is kind of like my Leatherman tool. I don't know if you know what a Leatherman is, but it's like this fold up little tool, and it has like a little leather pouch. It's made in Portland, Oregon, and it's got pliers, and it's got a screwdriver, and it's got a can opener, and it's got a knife, and it's got a file, and it's got like a million tools. It is so handy. So many tools in one. That's what curiosity is. And it's a little easier to reach for than empathy, because empathy is a really big ask if someone has seriously harmed you. So, what does curiosity sound like? Well, we could call it curiosity to entertain questions rooted in why. Why? Why? Why did this happen? That can be a very desperate question. It's anguishing. And the scope of this brief service doesn't allow me to take on that question as fully as I'd like, but I want to make something very clear. Our world is one of bewildering randomness. And the mystery, as I understand it, does not manufacture obstacles for us to navigate in order to make us stronger. Crisis and tragedy are not plunked down in front of us according to some great cosmic plan. And so, this is the great thing about being you. Although some of you might believe this, I will argue it every chance I get, because everything happens for a reason is a damaging claim, I believe. It is not true that everything happens for a reason, unless that reason is, free will and a universe that's a bit more chaotic than any of us would like. So sometimes curiosity is a desperate why. But curiosity has a clearer and more purposeful sound. The bell of curiosity rings when I manage to ask, with the gate of my heart cracked open ever so slightly, what could have shaped a person to make that choice that was so careless or hurtful? And then I have to breathe. I wonder how they've been hurt and unable to transform that pain, that they need to transmit it to others. And then we breathe. I wonder if they feel bad. And if not, what must it be like to live inside that heart? And I breathe. And then maybe the curious question is, what kinds of wounds have they been dealt? None of these questions are about letting my wounders off the hook. They are about releasing my own certainty over the state of their souls and what's in their heads. And I imagine that this is what Jen Hatmaker is referring to when she says, forgiveness is a one-person show. Forgiveness is a long road in the same direction. And eventually that long road might lead me to the difficult question, what if the hurt and betrayal that they doled out to me didn't have a lot to do with me? Doesn't make it sting less, but it does help me understand pain as kind of a cosmic hot potato. It gets flung around, wounding hearts, and it underscores what I named earlier this morning, that if I, thanks to Father Richard Rohr, if I don't metabolize this pain and choose what to do with it in alignment with who I know I am, that hot potato is going to go on and wound someone else. People hurt us. People betray us. In the words of David Rico, people are not loving and loyal all of the time. But we also need people, especially Unitarian Universalists who are a people of relationship. We are a people of promise. We are a people of trust and of accountability and of coming back to the table and being willing to hash out the path to repair if it's possible. We call one another to our fullest selves when we are being tempted by angrier, pettier, more sinister voices, and we remind one another that we are never done growing and learning. Our spiritual journeys will never be over. And so there is time for these two stories to smooth out from their knot and to gently intertwine as we smooth them. I ask you to join me in a moment of going inward into silence or comfort. Before we pray together, I would like to really let you get comfortable and to be in silence. And we'll sit and breathe, finding softness in your body or in your heart or in your mind. Letting yourself feel whatever you feel, knowing that we are here together and yet you're in private conversation with the great mysterious who is always with you. I begin my prayer with the words of, again, David Rico, Buddhist therapist. What makes us human beings so uniquely wonderful in this puzzling universe is that we never give up on love. Against all odds, with no guarantee of being loved in return out of the hate and hurt so often handed us. In the face of the sad suffering history has let us see, we go on loving. What deep respect we're worthy of for this capacity of ours to make love out of anything and to let it last. And so, if the source of life receives the prayers of our hearts, let us begin with prayers of lamentation for recognizing our capacity to harm and hurt one another, whether it is in our immediate human circles or whether it is on a global scale with bombs and missiles. Let us add a prayer of gratitude for the people who love us and heal us, for people who are the helpers and the repairers who remind us who we are and whose we are. And finally, we pray for our capacity to love, our capacity to go on loving this broken world and its hurting people, beginning with ourselves. May it be so. Amen. Our meditation, our prayers now get to take the form of singing. We'll all be muted, of course, but we will share in the centering hymn, Spirit of Life. Love is hard.
Love for people, especially those who are different from you.
Love for self, especially when we feel shame or guilt.
Love that says, let your unique light shine in the world because each of our souls touches the divine mystery.
Love that says we're on a journey together and my fate is tied up with yours.
Love that grabs you and won't let go until your whole life is dedicated to siding with love.
Love that changes the world.
Love that changes how we move through the world.
Love is hard. Do it anyway.
Thank you so much, Reverend Erika, for this beautiful, beautiful service. As I mentioned at the beginning of the service, we will be returning to in-person worship soon. We have one more online service next week with Jenna Nunziato leading worship on Zoom. And then the following week on Sunday, March 13th, we will welcome 100 people back into the meeting house. There will be no coffee hour. Please greet one another outside after the service. To honor the spirit of love and mutual support that defines our covenant with one another, all who enter are required to be fully vaccinated. Masks are required. Only our choir will be singing, and there will be no sign up ahead of time. For the safety of families with young children who are not yet able to be vaccinated, for anyone not vaccinated, or for anyone having symptoms of illness, or just those who are not comfortable being in public spaces yet, we will continue to offer live streaming for online worship. We look forward to seeing you all in person or virtually in the weeks to come. As we bring our service to a close, please join me in saying our unison benediction shown on the screen as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We hope to see you after our postlude for our virtual coffee hour on Zoom. But until then, please enjoy our postlude, which is Swimming to the Other Side, sung by our First Parish Folk Group 425 Congress.
We are living neath the great Big Dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. I am alone and I am searching, hungering for answers in my time. I am balanced on the brink of wisdom. I'm impatient to receive a sign. I move forward with my senses open. Imperfection, it be my crime. In humility I will listen. We're all swimming to the other side. On this journey through thoughts and feelings, finding intuition, my head, my heart, I am gathering the tools together. I'm preparing to do my part. All of those who have gone before me band together and be my guide. Loving lessons that I will follow. We're all swimming to the other side. We are living in the great Big Dipper. We are washed by the very same rain. We are swimming the stream together, some in power and some in pain. We can worship this ground we walk on, cherishing the beings that we live beside. Loving spirits will live forever. We're all swimming to the other side. When we get there, we'll discover all the gifts we've been given to share. Having with battle since life's beginning, and we never noticed they were there. We can balance at the brink of wisdom, never recognizing that we've arrived. Loving spirits will live together, we're all swimming together.